Hello, everybody. This is Randall Lim. I would like to introduce to you the traditional Japanese tea ceremony. Now, what is the traditional Japanese tea ceremony? It is a traditional practice. It's an activity, it's a practice embraced by both the warriors and the Zen monks alike. Zen monks will practice this every day in their daily practice of meditation. The purpose of their practice is simply to cultivate Ichigo Ichie, which is mindfulness, motion, which is empty mind or no mind, and Zanshin, which is a continuous mind or lingering mind. Then what would the warriors do? Why do they observe? Warriors will quietly observe the procedure and partake of the eventual bowl of tea before every battle. Right before every battle. It's a way to cultivate calmness. There's Fudoshin, calmness, settledness, centeredness, composure before a war, because they are prepared to die. Or sometimes if these warriors are able to do it themselves, they will conduct it themselves. Tea drinking. Tea and tea drinking was introduced to ancient Japan through ancient China. Now, especially during the Tang Dynasty in China. China was the cultural capital of the ancient Eastern world. So China would introduce tea to places like Japan, Korea, and all around. Amongst all the various kind of tea which China introduced to Japan, the green tea or the rokcha caught very well among the Japanese. This is how the kanji of rokcha looks like. Now, there are many kinds of green tea, many kinds of rokcha. On the left is called a matcha. Matcha is simply young tea leaves ground into powder form, which is meant to be mixed with hot water. The second kind is called sencha. Sencha is young tea leaves, the whole tea leaves in, right? It's meant to be brewed in hot water. The third kind is called hojicha. Hojicha are just tea leaves together with the twigs or the stems and roasted until brown. During the roasting process, the leaves would curl up and roll up. Okay, it's meant for brewing with hot water. Or sometimes this hojicha would be pounded into powder. And when they are pounded into powder form, they will be mixed with hot water. The fourth kind is genmai cha. Genmai cha is simply sencha mixed with roasted brown rice. It will give a different kind of aroma. So these are the four basic types of green tea. However, there's only one type of green tea that is used in the tea ceremony. That is matcha. Young green tea leaves that has been pounded into powder. That's matcha. Now, the following is some terminologies used in tea ceremony. The actual ceremony procedure itself is called chanayu, or directly translated is called the soup of tea, or the tea soup. While the way of life or the lifestyle or the outlook of the tea ceremony practitioner or partaker is called Chado, or the way of tea, or the path of tea. Is a way of life. Now, the skill set or the know-how of to perform such a ceremony is called otemae, grand hand front. Otemae simply refers to any kind of great things that happen, that take place in front of one's hand, any kind of skill. The greatest influencer of the traditional Japanese tea ceremony as we know it today, the greatest influencer is this person called Senno Rikyu. Right? Senno Rikyu was a tea master in the 1500s. Although he was not the inventor of the tea ceremony, but he was most famous for formalizing and refining the procedures until the form we see today. That's Senno Rikyu. Now the tea ceremony or the Chano stages come in 7 basic stages. Right? The first step will be invitation. An invitation will be sent to the guests in their own homes in a few days in advance. And then the second step will be on the day itself, preparing the room, preparing the tea room. Third step, receiving the guests. Fourth, offering the sweets, cleaning the utensils, preparing the matcha, and the matcha drinking itself. I will go into little detail, but just it's still quite brief. Like invitation, invited guests will receive an invitation notification in advance. On the appointed day and time, the guests will be invited to wait in a waiting room or in a waiting hut like this one. This hut would be separated from the main house. And then once the guests have all arrived, preparing the tea room. Now the tea room will be prepared by the master's disciples or apprentices. Well, this is how it looks like from the outside of the tea room. If you look on the left, there's this small little entrance indicated by the arrow. Now all guests will have to enter the tea room through this small opening. Now the reason why the opening is small is so that all the guests will be forced to leave their swords outside, as well as to bow down low regardless of their social status. So it is a way of forcing humility. Right? In the tea room, regardless of your social status or rank, everyone is equal. This is how it looks like on the inside of the tea room. There's a calligraphy, there is the hot water tank, canister. Right? Once all the guests have arrived and seated accordingly, neatly, the tea master would arrive. He would kneel on the floor, on the mat, slide the door open, enter the room, and welcome all the guests with a bow. Right? Then he would take his position. First thing before he starts making the tea would be offering sweets to the guests. Now the traditional Japanese sweets are called wagashi. Wagashi. They are simply confectionaries in the shape of fruits, flowers, or animals. And they are offered to guests to sweeten their taste buds before the bitter matcha is drunk. So these are some simple examples of wagashi. Sometimes it could be a kind of mochi or glutinous rice dumpling. But the main purpose of wagashi is to sweeten the taste buds of the guests before they partake of the bitter matcha. Before making the tea master would clean the utensils. Right, from this point onwards, silence is appreciated from the guests. Right? A cloth will be prepared to wipe the utensils clean. Now, these are the 3 utensils that will be wiped: the chawan or the clay bowl, the chasen or the bamboo whisk, and the cha shaku, the bamboo scoop. Preparing the matcha. Roughly 2 or 3 heaped scoops of matcha powder from the tea canister will be added into the bowl, as you see on the left side, the left picture. Then twice the amount of hot water, not boiling, roughly 80 degrees Celsius. Hot water will be added, twice the amount of hot water will be added by volume to the bowl. And then the chasen, which is the bamboo whisk, will be used to stir and mix the matcha powder in the hot water in a short linear reciprocating strokes or in a W fashion, as you can see in this picture. Not circular. It must not be stirred in a circular fashion, but in a linear fashion. Okay, this is done. This continues until the matcha turns foamy. Matcha drinking. The master would rotate the bowls so that the attractive side faces the guest. However, upon picking up the bowl, the guest should rotate it back again so that the attractive side is turned away from his lips, because the guest does not wish to damage or to dirty the portion of the part where the pattern is, the nice attractive side is, as a form of respect for the tea master. The hot matcha should be finished in 2 or 3 sips. Right? And finally, once the matcha has been finished and once the bowl is empty, the guest would have to explicitly admire the design of the bowl, right? As a form of respect also for the potter who did this bowl. Now, the ultimate goal of traditional Japanese tea ceremony is not the ceremony itself. It's not the cha no yu ceremony itself, but is to cultivate ichigo ichie, which is mindfulness. Also to cultivate motion, empty mind or no mind. Also to cultivate zanshin, continuous mind or the lingering mind. But most importantly for the warrior in the olden days is for them to cultivate fudoshin, calm and centered mind. Now, to cultivate all these things, they have to do it through embracing the way of tea or Chado as a way of life. So it is not the ceremony that matters, but the way of life. Embracing the way of tea as a way of life. With this brief introduction of what traditional tea ceremony is, I hope that you can find a chance to research more on that and experience it for yourself one day. Thank you.